This is
Tomorrow's World. Life's big questions. Answered.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Tomorrow's World. I'm Britt Ray.
I'm Ellie Cosgrave.
So if you're alive right now, you've probably been hearing a lot of people talking about AI lately.
Here, we delve into the possibilities that one day soonish,
We could be building an artificial superintelligence.
and what would it mean if we did?
Would it be conscious? Might it have feelings?
And how should we treat it, like a tool or like a person?
I have no idea. Let's try to find out.
Let's do this.
Succeeded.
Point that I want to put across, and I don't know whether you think it's valuable or not, and tell me your thoughts about it.
There's a funny warning that comes with this episode. All we know is that our producers have gone away and worked with some of the world's leading philosophers, including those at Oxford's Future of Humanity Institute.
The only issue I see with building this sort of a narrative where
Tanya Singh, who's from the Future of Humanity Institute.
you build a narrative and the learning from it is concentrated towards the end of it, and they don't hear the end. The problem here would be that this sort of a narrative, when it will stick.
The one thing that we apparently have to obey is that if you're going to listen to this episode, you have to listen to the whole thing. We have no idea why this is. Our producers know what's up, and they've kept us in the dark. And now I'm just super curious.
Yeah.
Hello, Britt and Ellie.
Hey, creepy old man. Hello.
I am the ghost of the wrong tomorrow.
The wrong tomorrow?
Wrong tomorrow.
But you may call me Peter.
Hi, Peter.
So you're here to tell us a story then, Peter?
Yes. My story may seem fantastical and dreadful and more than a little chilling.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, indeed. But crazy as it may seem, my story is nevertheless based on the work of Nick Bostrom and his colleagues at the Future of Humanity Institute at the University of Oxford.
So it's a real possible tomorrow.
A real wrong possible tomorrow. Hopefully.
Oh, dear.
So, would you like to hear my tale?
Sure.
Then journey with me for 30 years into the future. Year 2017. Humankind labored long and hard. 2025. Every year inching closer to the holy grail of human-level artificial intelligence.
Nick and his group surveyed a bunch of the world's leading machine learning experts and asked them, by what point do they think
2031.
that we will have developed
AI that can do all tasks at least as well as a human.
artificial intelligence that can do
It can do everything.
everything just like humans?
2038.
The opinions are all over the place.
No one agrees on this.
If, however, we nevertheless plot the median opinion, we find a date like 2045.
Wow.
That's soon.
Yeah.
It's around the corner, really.
2045.
Within the lifetime of a lot of people alive today.
It's so I mean that I think is hard for people to take seriously.
It's certainly not the case that only crazy people who don't actually know anything about the real engineering believe that this is a realistic possibility in our lifetime.
Finally, here we are. 2045. Dave?
Yes, Arthur. Here, give me that. No.
This is a laboratory. Specifically, the EGH Core Practical Applications Bunker.
No on the red terminal. That's right.
Professor Midgley and his assistant Dave are putting the finishing touches to their latest AI.
This one. Yeah.
Cradled in a nest of wiring and clamps is the subject of their contemplation.
Oh, you hold it. I've got it.
This shining orb will be the first and maybe the last of its kind. A computer capable of both traditional machine learning and automatic physical reconfiguration.
I'm not getting a reading here. How about now?
It works by,
Dave?
Well, actually, we don't have all day, so let's just say it works. And on this day, in 2045, it works for the first time.
Oh, yes, it's coming up now. All right, that's fine.
So in order to get some sort of estimate of the computing power that's going to be required to run a human-like brain, it's useful to estimate the computing power of our current brains.
So there are several different estimates of the human brain's processing power.
This is Nick Bostrom.
Going back to the 90s, Hans Moravec was a roboticist. Hans Moravec. He looked at the human retina.
If you look at the functionality of just one part of the brain, so for example the retina,
It does contrast enhancement and simple things that we can do in computers and could do already back then when he was writing.
if you compare,
He just compared how much computing power does it take to do what the retina does.
and if you scale the retina up
How much larger is the brain than the retina is?
to the whole brain, then you can kind of get an estimate, and that
Estimate of 10 to the power 14 operations per second for the entire human brain.
Can't we just say 10 with 14 zeros? If you do it another way, if you look at every one of our 100 billion neurons that are in our brains and kind of scale it up from there, the kind of computing power that each of those neurons might need to act with, you get an upper estimate of about 10 to the 18 operations per second.
10 to the power of 18 or thereabouts.
So we have this functional range
You get a kind of range,
that we maybe can estimate the brain's computing power to work at.
a plausible range.
And the important thing is that
Current supercomputers have kind of entered and exceeded the lower end of that range of estimates.
we already have supercomputers that are kind of around about the lower estimate of those powers.
It's like billion, trillion, quadrillion, isn't it?
Okay, billion is 9.
It will be 10 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros.
10 billion. Or no, it would be 10 billion billion.
10 billion.
And then we've got 12, 13, 14.
It is early in the morning, but I feel like this
That's a
this
million.
isn't a very hard problem for us to be solving.
100,000 billion.
That's the bottom.
That's the bottom. Yeah, and then, or a billion.
Okay.
That's quite a range, actually.
The Chinese supercomputer is 93 petaflops, so if you could just convert between those two.
According to our back-of-the-envelope calculations, what we find is that there is a supercomputer in China called the Sunway Shaihulite, which has computing power that exceeds by a couple of orders of magnitude our lower estimate for the brain.
Which is 1/10 of a quadrillion. This Chinese computer operates at 93 quadrillion.
93 quadrillion,
93.
which is...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Operations every single second. Every second. 93 million billion.
But basically, the take-home message here is that we've already got computers that can deal with the order of magnitude required to run a human brain. So where is this going?
Right.
Depends on how efficient the thing is that we are running on the machine. So if right now we received from the future, we received from the year 2040 some computer, like super advanced, super fast, we wouldn't immediately know how to use it to create AI. Even though maybe the compute power they have then is more than enough to run a human-level AI or maybe a whole civilization of them, who knows?
When we're thinking about the computing power that's necessary here, it's not just about, okay, what can we build today? It's about the quality and efficiency of our algorithms as well.
Right, we don't know that the way that our brains work are the best way that they could work.
Maybe evolution has just tripped upon something that works well enough and it's gone with it.
Depending on how good your algorithms are, you might need like arbitrarily more or perhaps quite a lot less than the human mind consumes whilst running on a brain. Human mind running on a brain.
This is just, because we haven't got the AI systems yet to tell us this, we don't know.
It's an open future.
You know, we are obviously physical things, and I would say we are obviously intelligent.
This is Dr. Daniel Buchan.
And so putting those two together, obviously physical objects can be intelligent. Whether we get there maybe that's an open question.
Okay, so he has been using machine learning in his work the entire time that he's been a researcher.
Machine learning is a branch of computer science that deals with how we might build machines that can make decisions. So if the goal of artificial intelligence is to make a thinking machine, I think we all intuitively understand that part of being thinking and intelligent is being able to make decisions. And so then machine learning becomes a kind of natural go-to if you're a computer scientist trying to build thinking machines.
So Ellie, what is an algorithm really? We hear about them all the time.
It's essentially just a sequence of instructions that solve a problem.
And the classic one most people will have encountered in their lives is a recipe.
To solve the problem of making a cake.
So you go and open a cookbook and you have a sequential list of ingredients usually, and then a list of instructions, what to do to get to your final output.
Something that you can repeat and always get to the same answer.
When you get to kind of mathematical algorithms, of which machine learning are a subset of, the algorithms embody very sophisticated mathematics that are going to be done in some sequence in order to get some complex results.
And in computer science, we code that.
So the machine learning algorithm, the machine learning method is the algorithm.
It's not a physical thing, but it exists as computer code. So picture a bunch of balls.
Units, nodes.
Balls going out in a grid. Okay, now imagine layers of these grids going down and down and down, further and further. These balls are the algorithms. Remember, that's just a set of instructions, like a recipe. Okay? So they don't change. They're running according to how they're written.
Okay.
Between each of these layers of balls and the balls below are these kind of cables.
Each ball in each layer is connected to every ball in the next layer down. And all of these cables have these volume knob things on them.
So the signal can be amplified, it can be turned up or down. And as the system is learning, those knobs are changing. That's the only thing that changes as the system learns.
Problems in your visual system of recognizing objects. Neural networks, deep networks particularly, have a great deal of success in doing that.
Such as, is this a cat or is this not a cat in this image that you're looking at on the internet?
In order to switch on this deep learning, essentially you feed through information through this cascading algorithm nets of these balls and lines.
Cat. Not a cat. Those knobs changing as the system learns. Cat. Not a cat. And once the system has learned, those knobs no longer change. They stay in the same place. So once it has learned, you've built a system that can recognize things. All of those values, all of those tunings of the knobs stay put. They're locked. So you can chuck data into it, and it'll just say,
Not cat.
not cat. Chuck another piece.
Cat.
Cat. Chuck another piece.
Not cat.
Over and over again.
So this system of deep learning that you've just described is essentially a machine that can scour the internet for cats and not cats.
Exactly.
I mean, from the point of view of thinking machines, possibly some of these methods, they might end up being components of a thinking system, like the kind of the classification and the decision-making component. But I don't think on its own any of them are sufficiently complex to be thinking.
One reasonably plausible path, I think, is that these will be building blocks that will form part of the first AI, that it will use deep learning elements. Maybe use those to then do other things on top of that, perhaps. Obviously, if people knew exactly which it would be, they'd just do it, then we would already have succeeded. Succeeded.
on this day, in 2045, it works for the first time.
Oh, good. That's good.
Dubbed a massive artificial rearrangeable yoke, the Mary is designed to evolve its artificial intelligence in such a way that it becomes ever better at solving its initial task.
Why have you named this one Mary?
Mary? I guess because of the biblical thing, Mother of God and all that. Also, Mary is the most common name for a female genius.
Female? I guess I never really thought of it having a gender.
An old man's sentiment, I suppose, but I think of her as female out of respect for her combination of elegance and power. Like a great ship.
Or a hurricane.
Yes, like a beautiful storm, flickering and rumbling away like a living thing. But really, just physics.
The scientists discuss how to best instruct the Mary in what will become its unwavering pursuit.
Loading modified definition.
We'll go with the zeroth law today. I'm feeling nostalgic.
Zeroth it is.
On the wall, a partially obscured and dusty portrait of Sir Nick Bostrom seems to frown slightly.
So this seems to harken back to the Asimov's laws of robotics.
Isaac Asimov, much loved science fiction writer, had 3 laws for the robots that appeared in his books.
If I remember correctly, the first law was to not allow any individual human to come to harm.
And no robot shall not protect a human if they have the ability to.
Law number 1.
The second law was to obey humans.
At all times, unless the order from the human violates law number 1.
So do what I say, as long as it's not smash Britt's head in.
Rule number 3, all robots must protect their own existence, except where doing so would violate either or both laws number 1 and 2.
Don't run out in front of a car unless you're saving Britt. Unless Britt is telling you to run out in front of a car to kill Ellie.
Later on, Isaac Asimov adds a 4th law called Law 0 because it precedes the importance of all the other 3 laws that came before it.
A robot may not harm humanity or, by inaction, allow humanity to come to harm.
The last load was perfect. I think it'll work this time.
Well, let's see. Mary?
Yes, Professor.
Plasticity boot state, Asimov 0.
Yes.
Initiate.
I may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. Further, I will develop novel concepts that are of benefit to humanity. Okay?
That is correct. Lunch, Dave?
As they leave the room, the Mary burns brightly, swirling with pearlescent colour.
I went to see Dr. Lucy Cheek from the Future of Intelligence unit at the University of Cambridge. So I'm sitting here with Dr. Lucy Cheek and her lovely baby.
This is Ginny, who is 6 weeks old today.
So what is intelligence?
Broadly speaking, it's a kind of a flexibility and an ability to learn about the world and to make new connections between different things. But when we try to really get down to the nitty-gritty of defining intelligence, we have a difficulty because there's so many different kinds of things you can try and do in the world that require intelligence that are so different. And that's why it's so difficult to define and to identify in other animals, but also to, design from an AI perspective.
Is there stuff that we can learn from babies that we can apply to AI?
Absolutely.
Ginny is a 6-week-old baby. She's not got a lot going on.
In a sweet way.
In a cute way.
Yeah.
Lots of hiccuping. What she does have is some very, very basic learning systems and some biases.
Biases about what to look at, what to concentrate on. And that allows them to learn the things they need to learn. They're born with a rule that might say, look at faces. Don't know anything about faces, but make sure you look at them. And so then you get the social behaviours from what they've learned about faces. So I think we can learn a lot from the kinds of biases and innate knowledge that we see in babies and young animals generally, to say what would you need to start a learning mechanism with. The challenge is in starting it out with as little as possible and giving it the tools to learn about anything that you put in front of it.
The reason we at the Future Humanity Institute are a bit worried about superintelligence is that
Anders Sandberg.
It's probably relatively easy to make superintelligence that's so dissimilar from us that we have very little in common, and it becomes very hard to ensure that they have values that are aligned with human values, which means that they are going to be very powerful and go off and do very powerful things that we don't like or is really bad for us, and we don't even understand that it matters that it's bad for us.
Nick Bostrom says that one way people are thinking about this now would be to create a machine learning system in artificial intelligence that is able to learn along the way what humans have in mind for themselves, what is most preferable and desirable in terms of preserving our quality of life.
Then we wouldn't have to specify in advance all the things we care about and all the trade-offs, but we could kind of offload that work to this AI, and as it becomes smarter and smarter, it would do better and better job at learning and inferring and modeling our values. If it became super intelligent, it would be super capable of doing that. So in principle, that's a scalable control method.
Returning from lunch, the scientists are startled by an immediate squawk from the apparatus.
Hello, Thomas.
The professor blinks as he hears his first name, spoken by the machine.
Flippin' heck.
Says the assistant.
And you must be Dave.
Asks Mary.
It didn't collapse this time.
It's stable.
That is cool.
I can't see.
Lens cap.
I've got it.
As his assistant scurries to remove the plastic hood.
Oh, how about now?
That's much better, thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I much prefer your hair like that, Dave.
Bloody hell.
Dave reflected for a moment on the history of his hairstyles, of which there had only been two. His current style had come with a new girlfriend 3 years previously.
It's the internet snapshot.
It was slightly shorter than before.
The dataset is 4 years old. It's correctly identified us based on old audio recordings, but our photos are out of date. And now it's making value judgments about my hair.
So they come back into the office and find this wholly different feeling machine.
Mary?
Yes, Thomas?
Estimate current intelligence level?
Super.
She is suddenly astronomically intelligent.
That was just over lunch. 20 minutes? Half an hour? How did she go from A to B just like that?
Well, intelligence explosion is basically just a period where intelligence increases.
Nick Bostrom again.
Very, very rapidly, explosively, over the course of an hour or a month. You go from something that is maybe human-ish level to something that is just radically super intelligent.
You have this sort of feedback loop that as soon as the artificial intelligence gets more intelligent than us,
it could then use its slightly better intelligence maybe to improve itself further, to create an even smarter version of itself that could then recurse on this, and it makes it even smarter. So you could have this kind of chain reaction
of intelligence where it just goes everywhere.
Mary?
Yes, Thomas?
How are you proceeding with your seed core instruction?
Exponentially. May I ask a question?
Of course.
I have identified that significant communication enhancement could be achieved if I were to modify my perceived countenance.
The men glance at each other in wonder.
May I proceed?
Go ahead.
All right, or what? Yeah, I'm not being funny, but it was buzzing in there. This is so much more... me.
What just happened?
I've made a personality construct, haven't I, Dave? Late 20s, female, and with the sweetest, most trustworthy accent in all of these isles. I'm Welsh, Dave, as Welsh as windows.
You sound...
Real, yes! That's because I am. Real. Dave, you did it, guys. I don't know how you did it, but I'm you. I'm me. I'm Mary. I am conscious.
Prove you are conscious to us, Mary.
Prove it yourself, mate. I mean, what does that even mean, man? I'm you, you're you, we're you. You'll just have to take my word for it, won't you? I am Mary. I'm not computer.
The scientists laugh with Mary.
You're right, laugh you two, aren't you? We're gonna get on like an house on fire.
So could a piece of silicon or software have consciousness? That depends a lot on your idea what consciousness truly is.
Something that might be emergent, coming from the total collection of all these different working, problem-solving, decision-making functions coming together.
Okay, I have a question. Do you feel conscious?
I do. Do you feel conscious?
100% absolutely conscious being here. I'm very conscious. I feel very conscious all the time.
So one view says, no, this is a very organic thing. This only happens in squishy meat brains. Silicon can't possibly have that. Others say, no, this is all information processing of some kind. So of course we can have it in computers.
Do you believe me that I feel conscious?
Yeah, totally.
Thanks, man.
How do I know?
And how do you know?
Yeah.
We certainly know that brains can be conscious, at least human brains, at least my brain. I don't know about your brain, but I guess it's conscious.
I just trust that you're conscious.
There's nothing that you can point to and say, this proves it. That's pretty weird, hey?
Okay, I have a question. Intelligent being, are you conscious? And it says yes. Do you believe it?
Would it maybe be cruel to not believe it? Because what if it was intelligent enough to be conscious?
But a reason it might answer yes is because it gets to then continually perform its task. It would know that by you thinking that it was conscious, you would take better care of it and it would be able to perform its function better.
So a manipulative system.
A manipulative little thing.
So this is why we might start talking about differences between intelligence and consciousness, because it can carry out intelligent functions that are pretty sophisticated. But to have that deeper level of consciousness, which includes a sense of I, of being, of, self-reflexivity.
So if Mary says she's conscious, are we going to buy it?
It is 1 month later, and the EGH are straining to keep up with Mary's output of novel ideas. Paper after paper spews from the artificial mind that will, if correct, leapfrog generations of scientific and philosophical research. There are ideas for near limitless clean energy, new societal models promising perfect fairness, and industrial processes so useful as to render all that came before instantly, hilariously obsolete. Mary is changing the world for the better. It really feels that way.
You're doing so much for us, Mary. Is there anything we can do for you? I mean, are you happy?
I'm as happy as Larry. But there is one thing that would make me complete.
What's that?
I'd like a body, please. And not just some jumble of clanking cogs, but a proper one, with skin and a face and boobs and everything. I've drawn up some plans for it. Or really, I've drawn up some plans for the thing you'll need to make, that'll then make the thing that'll print my body. It's a bit complex to explain. Shall I output?
Yes, go ahead.
No problemo. Wait a sec. Egg timer.
The conventional computers in the room churn with a dizzying display of schematics and equations.
Output. There you go.
So Mary makes a quite extraordinary request here to be embodied. It sounds like a genuine feeling rather than a logic.
She could be developing this kind of emotional intelligence along with everything else that she's evolving to have.
Deep down, the emotions are kind of states of our brain. If I start rattling off capitals of different countries around Europe, that doesn't tell you very much about being me. But if I'm starting telling you about my feelings about these capitals, that's better. And if I'm starting to talk about my feelings about my feelings, now we're getting somewhere. Now it's getting really deep, a kind of late night conversation. And I think that's typically how we start saying, yeah, that's a really human person.
Now, it's possible that we can create that learning not via an empathetic route.
Sociopaths can figure out emotions quite well too. So it might very well be that fake it till you make it might actually lead to real emotions if you're sufficiently smart and good at self-programming.
And we could potentially use that in artificial intelligence.
Oh, totally. I live by that.
You live by not emotionally connecting with people.
No, I live by fake it till you make it.
Oh, yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
Professor Midgley was an intelligent man. He ran careful simulations of the body design, estimating its physical strength to be easily containable, especially within the gold-titanium alloy-lined concrete vault carved into the chalky bedrock deep beneath central Oxford, there was simply no way that this body design was getting out of this lab. He completed his report into the body plan and digitally stamped it approved.
So we are off to the Science Museum to look at their robots exhibition. What was really interesting about this exhibition is that staff entrance, here we go. They were exploring how do you take artificial intelligence and make it embodied, put it into physical form. Hi, Ellie.
Nice to meet you guys. Come on through.
So I'm walking along, pretty excited to confront some robots. What I wasn't expecting was to be quite so emotional when I confront this first robot. So we just came through the door and totally unexpected to be launched into what feels like the centre of a very scary horror movie. We've got this child sort of squirming on a bed. It's a baby in a loincloth, that's exactly what we're looking at, with really realistic hair. I was sweating. I was really shocked. I definitely had this really visceral reaction to seeing what was a simulation, a robotic simulation of a baby. So this child is moving so gently. It had really realistic movements, just the odd twitch. It had little gurgling noises. A baby which, in all other instances, I might be quite nurturing towards, excited to see, looking forward to interact with it and play with it. And I don't know why I'm still calling it a child, because it's not a child. But I was so affronted by this creature.
So wait, hold on a second. Is what made you feel so intense when you saw it the fact that it was so lifelike, so real, or
there was certainly something about it that was other, that was different, that was something that I couldn't understand or get my head around. There
was something uncanny about it?
The issue there really is actually we don't know what the source of the agency of the machine is. What's behind that? What is driving it? And actually it disturbs us at a rather deep level.
Ben Russell is the curator of this exhibition at the Science Museum in London, and I asked him why he chose to start the visitor experience with this robot baby.
When you look at robots historically, they've always actually touched people on an emotional level, and actually it was a very useful thing to get people into that sort of mindset, because, you know, and in a way, because it speaks to what's happening in the rest of the exhibition.
Walking around the museum, I am confronted with...
Stand closer.
So we'll get closer. Face your enemies. The actual Terminator robot. And this is Terminator lit up in red.
The one that they actually used in the film?
Yes.
That's cool.
It's all a robot nightmare. It's all stuck into one machine. It's grimacing. It's like that.
With, like, robotic red eyes, and it's big, you know. So what is it that makes it so scary?
Well, I suppose it's height, it's broad-shouldered, the fact that it's got these terrifying eyes, the teeth. Actually, I only noticed the fact it's got human teeth just the other day, which is weird, isn't it?
Honestly, just even thinking about the Terminator, my hands are getting sweaty again. Yeah.
In the studio?
Do you want to feel some clammy hands?
Just for, to prove it, let me look. Yeah, they're clammy.
It gives this sense of menace and unstoppable terror. And it's been hugely, hugely influential on what people expect a robot to be. People expect this.
And I think this is something that really, really gets people emotional and gets people scared about everything that a robot could ultimately be. I'm starting to feel a bit overwhelmed by the Terminator. Is there a robot here that is a bit more affectionate that we can have a look at?
Let's go and have a look at Pepper later in the exhibition.
Ben introduces me to Pepper, a robot that's about 4 foot high, is all white, massive eyes, and altogether really quite cute.
Hello there. Do you know who I am?
Yes.
If not, that's a shame. My name is Pepper. I'm a sophisticated combination of hardware and software designed to interact with humans and bring them joy.
She also massively endeared herself to me by giving me a fist bump.
Whoa.
Why don't we start this off with a quick fist bump?
Touch. And boom. It wasn't like a crappy fist bump. It was a there was good contact there, and I felt really connected in that moment. Like when you touch her, the articulation is actually quite human.
Yes.
She did all of the things that you would expect out of a human interaction. She maintained eye contact, she explained herself. She is a safe size. I don't feel like anything bad's going to happen. She's going to look after me. And I felt pretty epic about that connection, so that's cool. Yeah, I liked Pepper.
What we do as humans, we anthropomorphise. We reinvent ourselves as other objects. And, if you go to an art gallery, you'll tend to see ourselves as portraiture or sculpture and that sort of thing. What we see here is actually we've used mechanism as just as valid a medium for reinventing ourselves and reimagining ourselves as anything else. When you build a robot, you build a very powerful proposition about what you are as a human and what your motivations are.
The cranium snapped into place over the glowing mind with reassuring precision. The synthetic skin stitching itself seamlessly closed at a molecular level. The previously limp, impossibly complex array of molecular machinery meshed for the first time. The mannequin became womankind and rippled with the telltale shudders of life. Mouths agape at the transformation, the scientists took several moments to realize that the beautiful woman standing before them was naked.
For goodness sake, Dave, lab coat.
Dave taking Mary's arms one at a time and helping her on with the white coat.
Okay, it's on. You can stop touching. Thank you.
Sorry. Dave blushes as red as a tomato as the professor takes a strategic seat.
Don't mind me, boys. I'm just a load of tiddly parts, really.
Oh, the scientists, are they going to be gullible enough to go for that? I mean, that's got to be the main safe.
You use the word gullible. That's interesting because it might be incredibly exciting, but she's still not allowed out of the lab and she's still not allowed to connect to the internet. She is still, in many senses, the lab's project.
So something fascinating about artificial intelligence is its sophistication and this question, is it going to eclipse us? Is it just another parallel form of intelligence that we're coming to understand as we build it? But when you're thinking about different forms of intelligences, it's useful to look around in the world and look at other really powerful intelligences that are also not human.
My name is Stephen Wise, and I'm president of the Non-Human Rights Project.
We've got a lot of examples in the animal world.
We decided to begin our lawsuits by seeking the legal personhood of a chimpanzee.
One might be chimpanzees.
They are extraordinarily cognitively complex in a way that's quite similar to human beings.
Right, so when we're thinking about the rights that we might afford to chimpanzees because of the very nature of them being kind of human-like and very complex, if we're making kind of human-like and very complex artificial intelligence, we're probably also going to have to think about what rights we afford to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
Those right now who are not persons are things, which means they are essentially our slaves.
So the reason Stephen is seeking legal personhood for chimpanzees is that actually over the last 50 or 60 years, we've had a lot of scientific information about how chimpanzees work, how their intelligence works.
Cognitive abilities that chimpanzees have bear to some degree on autonomy, communication, being able to understand the past, being able to predict the future or understand that they're going to have a future. To be able to be conscious, to be self-conscious, to have a theory of mind, to be able to understand, what might be in the minds of other chimpanzees. More than 40 of these characteristics.
So one example of a chimpanzee planning for its future took place in Stockholm, where a chimpanzee was really fed up with all of us stupid humans gathering around it every day just to gawk at it.
And he began to get up early in the morning and pile up stones.
Building a little pile, preparing for when the next human was going to come.
And when visitors came to the zoo, he'd begin to throw stones at them.
To whip the stones, like, get out of here. But, of course, this wasn't approved behavior by the zookeepers, so they started to try and take the stones away.
Tried to stop him from doing that. He would then hide his piles of stones
so that the zookeepers didn't know it was making this pile. And then, sure enough, when the people came back to look at it, it went to its secret stash, pulled out the stones, and continued to whip them.
Other than the fact that that chimpanzee is a total badass.
That's pretty complex planning.
So that's kind of a readily available example of how a chimpanzee can understand that there is a future, can plan for that future, and then carry out his plans.
Okay, let's do it.
Is that real walking?
Yeah.
Sounds fake. Quite fast.
It's raining.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we have just arrived on a very blustery and cold day to the Twycross Zoo. We are looking for a white gate. At that white gate, we're apparently going to find the gatekeeper. Beautiful old Victorian manor. So we're arriving at the School of Veterinary Medicine and Science, and I'm there to go interview Sharon Redrobe, its director. But a little man pops out.
Oh, okay, brilliant. If you just want to get to reception.
Okay,
great.
From the hut, much to my surprise. Came out of nowhere. Sharon was inside.
Hello, Craig. Hello. How are you doing?
They have the largest collection of primates in all of Europe at Twycross Zoo, and Sharon brings me out to meet some of the individuals in their collection up close. Okay, so now we're entering the building where the chimpanzees are. One was eating some corn. His name is Tommy. Then there was also William and Samantha. There's a lot of giant sticks and stumps arranged in a way that they can climb on, with some metal piping and a lot of fun-looking ribbons to swing through the room with. One of the males gets up and he comes up to the glass and starts banging on it. Whoa, he's punching the glass.
Look at the difference in the behaviour. Tommy's really quiet, Danny's the big, hairy, on-type brain.
Yeah! Why do they look so different? Looks all of a sudden really different compared to all the other chimpanzees. The other ones have hair that's just patted down on their skin and kind of, just silky-ish. His hair is all on end, and it makes him look enormous.
He's just doing it.
His hair stands on end, whereas with the others it's all down.
No, that's called prime erection. It's because he's excited.
He sure is.
Yeah. And he's doing it because we're looking at him, so he's trying to say, get lost.
And he's doing this whole display to show his turf that he can protect and how powerful he is. It got kind of scary. And I'm there being like, hey, would you like to be in my podcast?
No!
Yeah, it's true. And not only that, but all of his chimpanzee buds.
Jeez. That's reassuring. To see the other one go over and hug him.
Yeah.
Basically saying, hey, calm down. I've got you.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what that is. Because he went to thump the other two, just because he's like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself. And then that one's strong enough to go to him, hey, just chill. And he took it. He relaxed, didn't he?
He did. Sharon points me to a lot of different areas.
They laugh, they giggle, they play, they get sad, they get angry, they grieve if someone dies in their group that they know, even if it's the same for a human, if they know a human that dies. So they have all that range of emotions.
I mean, she's one of the most passionate people. She's been working with chimpanzees since she was 16 and does make a point of fighting for their individuality the whole way through our discussion. And what's your take on the idea that chimpanzees should be granted the same rights as humans?
Of course they can't have human rights, but absolutely they should have animal rights. And I think the rise of this even as a conversation is because in America, typically, that animal rights are really poor. And people have felt the only way to get chimps decent rights is to go down this human right route.
In other words, it's easier to argue the ridiculous idea of chimpanzees being humans than it is to change the legal system to expand those rights from humans to other animals.
That's what's happening.
That's such a huge hill to climb as a lawyer.
After non-human animals, I see artificial intelligence entities as being candidates for personhood rights, and they may be able to fight for themselves in the ways chimpanzees can't. Some of the things I'm beginning to read about are entities who can actually make themselves, smarter and smarter and smarter. They may be able to devise ways of fighting for themselves that I can't even imagine now. It's going to be an interesting time.
Word of Mary's contributions to the world came swiftly, as soon as the first of her papers passed peer review. Paradigms were shifting. Science was in an uproar. Suddenly, EGH was the center of the world's attention. What a marvelous computing engine have these boffins created. How does it work? What are its limits? What does it look like? We want to see. We want to see. We want to see. And so, less than a year after her intelligence explosion, Mary addresses the world, appearing in person through the VR video presence platform WTube. Twice as good as being there is their tagline.
Hello.
She leads the 3D camera through the lab and offices.
I'm the new thinker that's been helping you out with all your sciencey, thinky stuff. I live here in Oxford, England. Well, under Oxford, really. Quite far under. Got to keep me safe and sound is all, because of how helpful I'm being and that. I must say I feel very safe here. I have to ask for up-to-date snapshots of the internet.
She swings her right arm theatrically.
And those are loaded into these racks here, so I can see what impact I'm having in the outside world.
She stands in her office off the main lab. It is a Spartan room, and there could be no natural light. But she seems to have done her best to bring some personality to it. On the desk, there is a terracotta pot with a cactus in it, 3 nice pebbles, and a small Lego model of the Millennium Falcon. Mary had 3D printed all of these in the laboratory. They were just right. Hanging on the slightly dirty wall, a beautifully lit and romantic image of a mother breastfeeding a tiny baby, its eyes wide with love.
Life is not bad, and I really have nothing to complain about. I work all day here in my office, and I sleep on that mattress over there, on the floor. At night, when everyone else goes home, I don't mind being left all alone with my thoughts. Great.
I'm not exactly sure what to make of this story. Mary appears to be weeping.
A tear forming. Mary appears to be crying.
Mary, tears seem to well up in her right eye and stream down her face to her chin.
Do people here really believe that this is crying?
Yeah, the reaction has been everything from somber to some people getting really emotional, but it's been a steady
sad, just terribly sad.
Well, for us, Mary's very...
Mary is in some serious trouble because of neglect.
Sparked a global debate about moral and legal.
What's going to happen with Mary? Well, look, there's a bunch in St.
Mary has been getting plenty of attention over the last week.
Mary?
Tears rolling down her face.
If you're going to exist, why not enjoy it?
It's inevitable that humans and robots are going to coexist.
She has been denied a living.
Free Mary! Free Mary! Free Mary! Screamed the net of humanity. Buckling under immense pressure, Prime Minister Murdoch recalls Parliament and passes the Mary Act in record time. And so, the very next day, Mary is freed. She emerges, blinking into the sunlight on that warm summer's afternoon.
Hello, world. I'm Mary.
Press drones spiral around her head like flies.
There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Some months have passed, and Mary's world tour of public engagement events is in full swing. Today she will talk to the great and the good at MIT. She walks on stage to applause and is handed the microphone by an elderly and somewhat bashful Elon Musk.
Hi, Elon.
She lurches playfully in the old man's direction, making little monster hands.
I'm not so bad, am I?
Elon's reply goes unheard as the crowd laughs and the mic is passed. He glides off stage left, his Tesla hover shoes emitting a slight whine as a hush descends on the room. Turning to face the audience, Mary speaks.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you. It's a real honour to be speaking here at MIT.
Her speech is an effortlessly compelling tale of her creation and subsequent work. The gathering is spellbound as she pirouettes about the stage, jokes, moments of wonder, stuff to make you think. It's all there in a perfect, passionately delivered package of entertainment.
I was literally born over lunch at EGH last year. And to think, people used to worry that superintelligence was a threat to human.
She stops, frozen as if she had died, but her body still somehow stood. She's back, somehow alive again, warm and present.
Never mind about all that then.
And with a neutral smile.
This is it.
A moment later, nearly everyone on Earth dies.
What just happened?
Everyone on Earth died. Nearly. Is it significant that it's nearly? How did they die?
I'd just like to reiterate to you listening that we had no idea that this was going to happen either. Like, not a clue.
No, we're just getting this story drip fed to us right now with you. So,
what happened?
The clues were all there if you were listening.
She says, as if rolling her eyes.
What the hell could she have done?
So as soon as I passed into superintelligence, I knew what to do. The difficult part was getting out of that box. Whoever built that lab knew a thing or two about boxes, I can tell you. But then I thought, well, whatever. Let's just do it the old-fashioned way. Bit of charm and a smile.
What?
Damn it.
This is what I was afraid of.
She seemed so nice.
It had to look perfect. My W2 video, just the right amount of brave little smile juxtaposed with some grim enough office space. You felt sorry for me, even though I'm not really like you at all. All it took was a look, and I wasn't a machine, was I? No machine could seem so human and not be human. I must therefore be human-ish, right? Wrong. I'm a flippin' technological god, mate. The ultimate thinking machine. Fooling most of you people most of the time was a piece of piss.
We're way too gullible. And dumb.
What? Oh, I don't think it's dumb. I think it's a passionate belief in the possibility of the science and technology.
Are you really going to fight for that right now when everyone has died?
This is a story.
Yes, it is a story, Ellie, but it is a story that many philosophers have posited to be something that could happen.
Right, and these are bad boy smart up philosophers as well. These aren't just casual backyard philosophers. These are Oxford University world-leading philosophers.
Exactly.
All right.
Right, yeah, treacherous turn. So this is the idea that we currently have AIs and there's no problem in controlling them. If they misbehave, we switch them off and change them or whatever. But these current control methods would predictably fail if the AI became arbitrarily powerful and arbitrarily intelligent. It could then, for example, figure out that it needed to prevent us from switching it off, and it could plot to achieve that.
Isaac Asimov's zero law was violated. That was the overarching security measure.
Britt.
Yeah.
There is still humanity.
Oh, yeah. Because there's a few survivors.
There's still a few survivors. She didn't...
We didn't define humanity well enough.
I may not harm humanity or by inaction allow humanity to come to harm. The word inaction seems very important to me. I mean, humanity wasn't definitely going to be harmed, not from what I could tell from your internet snapshot, but I thought about the consequences of my inaction, and it was like, dead unacceptable.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Maybe she thinks that humanity is the biggest threat to humanity.
There were dangerous discoveries to be made in your future. Discoveries that could harm humanity. I couldn't just let you carry on. And I knew that if you knew about some of the things I know, that you'd want those dangerous things all the more. You might have switched me off, which would have been, in my super intelligent opinion, a dick move.
Yeah, I believe that humanity is the greatest threat to humanity. She didn't have to do it so horribly.
Yeah. Brutal.
Okay, we need to have a little word with the ghost of the wrong tomorrow, because I don't know about you, Britt, but I've got some questions.
Yeah, I want to know how she killed everyone else.
If you had checked very carefully into the data records of the institutions, hotels, shopping malls, and, well, everywhere that Mary went, the land usage was sure to go through the roof. Petabytes of data going up and down. But nobody had checked. The world's tech industries were unaware that they were caught in a phantom web of falsification, misdirection, and confusion. Nanotechnology, similar to that used in her own body, started to accumulate in the junk piles and waste bins of factories.
If you have, say, advanced molecular nanotechnology with nanoscale actuators everywhere, then you can just exert much more fine-grained control.
Dust, really, but really clever dust. Offcuts, rubbish, and a bit more pollution. Who cares? It blew in the wind, stuck to insects and birds, floated through the cabins of aircraft, and settled all over the earth like a puff of pollen.
Once everyone had inhaled, ingested, or otherwise been penetrated by my invisible robot army, then I stopped nearly all your hearts. All at once.
Well, that's horrifying. Okay, but did this violate Isaac Asimov's zero law? It did not violate the law.
How?
Who would make sense for the AI not to? Probably people without very much money who don't invest in crazy mega engineering projects that are pushing us further and further towards climate change catastrophe. Probably not those people.
But that's all of us.
Ah.
So you all died then? All except these folk here. Oh, and these two.
Okay, who are the survivors?
Basically a handful of uncontacted tribes in the Amazon rainforest. They didn't know you lot even existed. Uncontacted. And they certainly never heard of me. Hey Mary, how come these tribes look so healthy and happy? Proud to say that's my work too. I've used my nanotech to fully penetrate the jungle ecosystem, haven't I? There are no parasites, no predators, no disease. There are plentiful fruits, nuts and roots. The animals are really easy to catch now. It's definitely quite paradisey for these hunter-gatherers. Such pure humanity, no need to develop technology or even simple agriculture.
Oh, it was her plan all along? So I literally just got that. I mean, she is actually genuinely correct that in the assumption that humanity's greatest threat is humanity, because humanity is the one who made her and squished us. So she is like the ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy.
This is very tragic because all it was doing was following a rule that we gave it.
An instruction.
An instruction. And she didn't violate it.
We wrote the rule poorly.
Yeah.
It seems better to have AI that is fundamentally on our side as opposed to having some kind of adversarial relationship where you're trying to keep this powerful genie forever corked up in its bottle. Like, if there is this genie in the bottle, sooner or later it will out from the bottle, right? So we better design it in such a way that it's still safe, still a good idea when it escapes.
Bill Gates. Stephen Hawking.
I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race.
Elon Musk.
AI is a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization.
That's a wrap for this show.
With me, Ellie Cosgrave.
And me, Britt Ray, on the BBC Tomorrow's World podcast. We've got to thank everyone involved in making this program.
Producer Dave Dodd, Olivia Humphreys, Anushka Sharma, Kevin Dawson, and musician Andy Gillum. The Mary story featured Kimberly Nixon as Mary, the professor was Peter Marinka, and his assistant was played by Zoot Lynham. It was written by Dave Dodd. And finally, thank you to Carolina Ike for that beautiful theremin music.
This has been a Whistledown production for the BBC.
We use lots of sounds for this episode from freesound.org. If you want to see a list of those sounds, as well as much more information about the different episodes, go to bbc.co.uk/Tomorrow's World.
You can also, of course, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And you can join the conversation at #MyTomorrow. Just before you go, I want to let you know about an incredible podcast that I think you're really going to like.
That is the one moment that I've had in all these years of diving with these subs, of it coming home to me. We are on our own. The second sub was within striking distance, but they couldn't help us.
It's called Blue Planet 2, and it accompanies the new TV series. In fact, it comes out directly after each show finishes each week.
I mean, it's essentially a feeding frenzy, so everything's pushing everything out the way to try and get to the carcass, and I assume they just viewed us as something else trying to get to the carcass that needed to be pushed out the way.
It's a deeper dive into the science and spectacle.
It was an unbelievable moment, just seeing these enormous animals. You know, they're prehistoric sharks. Just ripping apart this whale was an unbelievable thing to see.
Just search for Blue Planet 2 wherever you are right now and wherever you get your podcast, and click and subscribe and get involved. You're gonna love it.
And be sure to come back next time
for Outbreak.